Hi, this is Anna Imagination with the Healing Garden. And you just read through the article I have on finding your coordinates, and you're at the end where you're looking for your own combination. This is where the magic starts to happen. So, for your own number, that's going to be the very first number that you get. Your number is going to be the one that resonates with you the most. This is not where you want to be. If you want to be at an 8, there is a good chance you are most likely at a 6. If you are huge on chakra stones and burning sage, if you are huge on the awakening and the Akashic records, you are a solid 6, because when you cross over to 7, all that stuff goes away. All of it goes away. That is only for people who are in the 2nd through 6th perspective. And when you cross over to the 7th, that stuff seriously downgrades in importance because you get the bigger picture. So if you are huge into chakra stones, huge into tarot readings and things like that, where you won't make a move without consulting your tarot cards, you are a 6, a solid 6. If you are all about the business mindset and you are all about growing your business and expanding your business, and you're not really concerned yet about the environment, you're probably a solid 5. 6s are usually very concerned about vegan, vegetarian diets. They're usually concerned about every time they make a purchase, they're thinking about the plastics involved. That's very much 6th mindset. Now that stays with you from 6, 7, 8. That's still there. The plastics, how does this purchase affect the environment? Switching over to glass, that's all 6, 7, and 8. So if you've switched over to glass and you kind of are dying out with the tarot readings and the chakra stones, and now you've got a collection of stones that you're just kind of like, I don't need them anymore. Now you're into 7th and 8th, and that's where you are. And you're probably looking, if you're a vegetarian, you're probably looking into vegan. If you were pescatarian, you're probably looking to drop down into the vegetarian. So you're looking at scaling up your diet. You're far more conscious about all of that. You're calm, you're chill. If you're chaos and if you are being affected by Mercury retrograde, you're a solid 6. If Mercury retrograde passes through your life and you don't feel it, you're a 7 or an 8, which is why you don't need the chakra stones anymore, is because you are aligned. And once you get aligned, you realize that you don't need the chakra stones anymore, because the energy pool is what aligns you, and the energy pool is what keeps you stable. You get all of your cleansing from the energy pool, so you don't need the healing, the Reiki. You don't need that anymore. It downplays because you've got the energy pool that's fueling you and taking care of you. If you think of it as when you cross over to the 7th, you are completely connected with the energy pool. Prior to the 7th, you are separate from the energy pool. So you feel the alignment, you feel or the misalignment, you feel that disconnect. So that's a really good way of determining if you are a 6 or a 7 or an 8. And a big thing with 8s is if you are an 8, you can see the different perspectives. You did not need to read that article. You walked into the article and you already were able to see all 8 perspectives, and you can communicate with all 8 perspectives. And you're probably at a point where you kind of don't care to talk to the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th perspectives, because cast not pearls before swine. And you know where they are in their own perspectives, and you know not to bother picking that kind of a battle. It's a lot like what the Buddha says about why a lion should not argue with a jackass over whether or not the grass is blue. That is an 8th perspective. I need to clarify. The 6th perspective is the lion who would argue with the jackass what color the grass is. It's the Buddha who says, why are you arguing with a jackass? That's the 8th perspective, just to give you an idea as to the different sectums. But wanting to be an 8 or a 9 is just a perspective that you value growth over comfort, which is a whole nother thing, which is fantastic. And it's not right or wrong. It's a stage of life. Sometimes you get into a stage where you value comfort more than growth. Other times you get into a stage where you value growth more than comfort. That's the other thing with the 8th perspective, is when you get to the 6th perspective, you want to grow because 6th perspective hurts. When you get to the 7th perspective, 7th perspective hurts. It doesn't hurt. It's just you're alone because it hurts. It hurts. It's a lonely because you can't communicate. So there's an incentive to want to get out of 6. There is an incentive for you to want to get out of 7. But 5 is pretty comfortable. 4 is pretty comfortable if you're a 4. 8 is pretty comfortable. So 4, 5, and 8 are a really solid, cozy spot to be in. 6 and 7, there's nothing comfortable about 6 and 7. So those two perspectives really value growth because they want things to be chill, that they are uncomfortable, which is the trials, the trial by fire that you see with 6 and 7. So your first number is going to be, if you look at the lesson that you have to learn, have you learned the lesson? And if you haven't learned the lesson, there is no skipping it. You cannot go to the next perspective until you really integrate the lesson. So that's the first thing. The second perspective, that second number of your combination, is going to be your subconscious mind. This is the perspective that abused you the most, second, third, or fourth. And understanding which of those 3 perspectives abused you the most tells you where your subconscious mind is trying to get you back to. So if you struggle with religious guilt, second perspective. If you struggle with PTSD, with any kind of sexual trauma, any kind of physical abuse, any kind of people or social skills where you are terrified of being around people, true trauma recovery is most likely third perspective abuse. Fourth perspective is, and this one's a hard one. This one's a really, really hard one. If you have any problem with labels, if you have any problems with being told you have to conform, if you have any problems with getting a 9-to-5 job, anything to do with the patriarchy, anything to do with the hierarchy abuse, you're not valuable unless you have a certain amount of money. You're not valuable unless you have a certain amount of status. You're not valuable unless you have any kind of abuse like that. That's fourth perspective abuse. So once you know what kind of abuse you've been subjected to for the majority of your life, now you know that that is your subconscious mind's perspective, and that's where you get self-sabotage. That's your subconscious mind constantly pulling you back. So first perspective is you. The second perspective is the abuse that you were subjected to with perspective abuse. And then your third number is going to be the environmental perspective. And this perspective reflects who has the authority in your household. So if you have a household where you are living with another perspective and that other person has the authority, they're the ones who's going to dictate the environment. If you step into any public transportation system, it's going to be a 4. So once you start to get into the understanding of recognizing all the different perspectives, you're going to be able to see it a lot easier. And when that happens, you'll be able to break it down, and then you can figure out your combination. So when you are in Journey into the Self, when you're into my program, then you're going to be able to determine exactly what milestone and what you need to overcome at each stage. That way you can pass through the perspectives. Now, this is different than perspective abuse. This is going to be a whole nother topic that's got shadow work in it. I don't like to call it shadow work, but this is other requirements of dialectical behavior therapy, your self-care regimen, and emotional management. So all of that, basically, it's reformatting your system so that you function the way nature intended you to function. So that is it for today. You should be able to now accumulate your combination, and the goal is to align your subconscious mind with your ethical perspective and your environmental perspective. That way you are aligned. Now, if you are an employee, or let me rephrase that, if you are an entrepreneur and you have your own business, your business also has to make sure it is aligned with you. If it's not, that's going to be a problem that's going to cause you pain. My company, my gorgeous healing garden here, It was an 8, and then I transferred it over to a 4 because I was getting a lot of advice and a lot of mentorship from a bunch of 4s, and I finally caught on to that, and I shifted it back over to an 8. Big change, which is why I kept saying to people every Sunday I do realignments, and I say, "Hey, we're gonna do another realignment," because it kept shifting back to a 4. Now I can see where it was and how to basically, my niche was a 4, and I needed to make sure that my niche is an 8. My niches are 6, 7s, and 8s. So it's very important that if you also own your own business, your business reflects your alignment. It has to reflect your ethics. It has to reflect your mental health as well. And in most cases, if you own a business and your business is struggling, it's because your subconscious mind is at a 2, 3, or 4, and it's trying to put it back over to that. And you need to realign it to your ethical perspective. So, 3 numbers: you, your subconscious mind, and your environment. And if you own a business, also the business has to be aligned with you. Thank you so much. And if you love shit like this, subscribe to my YouTube. If you want more shit like this, subscribe to my amphitheater. And if you cannot get enough shit like this, join my integration workshop, Journey into the Self, and become a member of the Healing Garden. Thank you so much. And may the kindest of words always find you.